Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. This is the Dirty South Project YouTube channel or IGTV, wherever you're watching us from. And we bring you guys today episode number 2. This is all about nutrition, but not, we're going to be talking about it in a bit, but not in the sense that you might think. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to eat. The title of the topic is Developing Habits and Accountability, right? Again, we don't have a name for this series yet because we're hipster that way or we're just lazy to think of one, but hopefully you guys are enjoying. So as I mentioned, today we're going to talk about nutrition, but not in the sense of what you're supposed to be eating. We're not going to go into details of certain diets and all of that. We'll be talking more about what goes around nutrition and improving your relationship with food and what you're supposed to be eating that will align with your goals of training and performance. Okay? You're probably wondering where or what is our basis of the training modules or the episodes. And nutrition is actually one of the pillars that the Dirty South Project sort of believes in. And the pillars of training, as we'd like to call it, are as follows, right? It's training, performance, obviously, what you do to make your body better, mindset, nutrition, recovery, and of course, last but not the least, sleep. Obviously, before we start the episode, I want to go into talking about why you should even listen to me, right? In terms of credibility, I don't really have much under my belt in terms of nutrition, but I do have my precision nutrition level 1. I have a lot of experience when it comes to experimenting and dialing my own diet, as well as maybe my athletes and other people as well. If you didn't know this about me, I actually took up culinary arts as well, hotel and restaurant management. And last but not the least, I'm a bit of a science and anatomy nerd. So I do have sort of like an innate ability to talk about what happens in your body on a chemical level and not a chemical and anatomical level rather than just like what's happening in general. Okay. Again, one more time, just like what we said on the first episode, and just a quick disclaimer, what you're about to hear, the insights and all of these things, these are the opinions that reflect the mission and the visions of Dirty South Project. And what this basically means is we recognize who we work with and who we primarily cater to. That's basically just the general audience. If you're, one of those people who are trying to make it to the CrossFit Games, this may or may not be for you. So today's topic again is nutrition, and we wanted to first and foremost talk about habits. It's important that rather than just always dialing in on what to eat and all of that, it's one of the things that will give you the most progress is developing good habits when it comes to food. So my first question for you, before we even develop and suggest about what habits to create and develop, is what is your goal? Right? What is your goal? I feel like regardless of what it is, if you're serious about it, you've got these next 2 steps that you need to do, right? First and foremost, you gotta prepare to put in the work. Nutrition, just like training, is not something that's going to happen overnight. And if you're not putting in the work, you're not gonna get the results that you want or you need. If you're, very serious about it, we highly suggest that you also seek the help of a professional. Somebody who will guide you pretty much every step of the way. If you're not the type of person who is not willing to adjust your nutrition, so you're probably one of those people that says, I work out so I can eat whatever I want. This video may or may not be for you, but maybe you'll learn a thing or two. So keep watching on. So when it comes to building habits, we have a couple of suggestions. And for the general public, specifically those who want to look better, for those who want to perform better, or just have a better understanding of what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, regardless of your goals, this is for you. Step 1, set your goal. Set a purpose on why you want to eat better. Recently, I've been reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts, and one line that resonates very well with me is this. If you have a goal without a plan, it's basically just a delusion. If you have a plan but you don't have a goal, it's still a delusion. If you have a goal without that plan, then you get my drift. So you have to have both, and it has to be very clear. Step number 2. Now, based on the goal that you have, whether it's weight loss, strength gain, building your engine, and trust me, it's all going to be very different when it comes to approaching nutrition, you have to research either on your own or you have to consult an expert. Getting as much information and experience in the lines of nutrition will give you a lot of good results that you're chasing after. Step number 3. Once you've done your research, once you've done your consultations, create a plan. As I mentioned, a goal without a plan is a delusion. Start with something simple. Start with daily, then proceed to weekly, then go monthly. And, there's no need to do any form of drastic changes right away. Especially if you do that, it's unlikely that you'll be able to sustain it. Step number 4. Obviously, you had your purpose, your goal, you had a plan now, you guessed it. It's time to execute. It's time to put things into action. You have to do what you set yourself out to do. And it's just a matter of time before you start to feel or see any improvements or progress. Which brings us to step number 5, which is very important for me. A lot of people just kind of go into action and then they think that that's the final stage of it. It's not. Step number 5 is you have to make an assessment. So you want to give yourself a certain period. Usually when it comes to nutrition adjustments, you're looking at anywhere from 7 days to 21 days or 1 week to 3 weeks before there are any physical adaptations to your body. You have to take the time to assess how you feel and how you look, obviously. When you do this, you're not just taking that first step to our latter part of the topic, which is accountability, but it's a way for you to reset. So when you make that assessment and you feel that there are major adjustments that need to be done, you bring yourself all the way back to step number 1. You go back to that consultation work, that research work, creating that goal again, setting out a plan, and then re-executing it. And it's a continuous cycle. Those who stick with just one cycle and feel that you're stopping at execution, chances are you'll either get stuck or you'll hit a wall. So you need to go up and beyond and do some assessment. And here's a side note for all of our suggestions as well. Journalize. And when I say journalize, I'm not just talking about writing on a manual or a notebook or a journal. I'm talking about taking pictures. I'm talking about writing down not just what you eat, not just what you think you look like right now, but also how you feel. And the thing about journalizing as well, and I know not everybody's comfortable with this, but I promise you it really works, and it really works, and it really helps out a lot. But it keeps, apart from just monitoring your progress, it also keeps motivation and accountability in check. And I think the only way that can be best explained is if you experience it yourself. So try that, especially for those who are now going to a nutrition plan or go into our suggestions. Take pictures. Write down how you feel. Write down what you think. And you'll see that progress eventually when you look back. We're going to take a quick pause about the module. Obviously, it's still kind of related to it. For a couple of truth bombs. And these are things that I just wanted to include just to sort of get to the point about certain things. And it's obviously going to revolve around nutrition, but also considering developing habits and keeping accountability. So the first truth bomb is no one size fits all. I know I said it in the first episode about how our insights and opinions may not fit for everybody. It's the same thing with nutrition, guys and girls. I think that you should try everything if you want to. Don't be afraid to do that, right? Let yourself be influenced by what you see on the internet, what you read, what your friends and family are doing. But it could be intermittent fasting, if it fits your macros, keto, paleo, all of that. And no matter what it is, you have to be analytical in your approach. And with any of these diets, we're not going to negate any of them and say that they won't work for you. But the truth of the matter is, there's a chance that it may or may not work for you. And you have to recognize that. Don't just get on it for the sake of saying that I'm on blank, or because this person or that person is doing blank and look how they look like. You're different. Everyone's different. You have to figure out what works best for you. Truth bomb number 2. If you are doing it without a purpose or a goal, chances are it won't be sustainable. And I can't stress this enough because I already said it earlier. But basically, again, if there's something I want to really dial in for the day, regardless of whether you're training or your nutrition or your goals in terms of improving your sleep, you may have a goal, but if you don't have a plan, it's all just a delusion. So be very clear about what your purpose is and what your goal is when dialing in your nutrition. Number 3, it's okay to go off track. No one's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. In the world of nutrition, there are just way too many variables that can affect how you eat, what you eat, especially now that it's ECQ and we're all on lockdown. We don't have full control over everything because, first of all, we can't even step outside. So there's a lot of other factors. It's not that simple to just go to the grocery store, to the supermarket, and buy what we need to eat and what we want to eat. But the point here is, just because you went off track, don't give up on the first sign of failure. You are allowed to make those mistakes. You need to hear that, and you need to know that. Truth bomb number 4. Nutrition is not spiritual, right? It's pure science. It's a game of math, of macronutrients, and physical adaptations. I recently heard this in a podcast and I also read about it, and again, it also resonates with me. But we have to remove the morality of nutrition. Stop putting, that level of understanding on food, because if you treat things as whether they're good or bad for you, it's a very toxic relationship with food. We have to understand that food or nutrition, quite simply put, it's fuel. It's fuel. Without it, you die, pretty much. In a training sense, without it, you will never have the energy to work out or feed your bones and muscles for them to grow and develop depending on what your goal is. Let's take out the idea of that morality and stop thinking that nutrition has any connection with a spiritual sense. It's pure science. Pure science. Last but not least, in terms of the truth bombs, consistency, consistency, consistency. When it comes to progress, it sits on this linear graph, right? And on that linear graph, there are X's and O's, or basically there are right and wrongs, and that's fine. It's important that when you input the work, you have to understand that you will be rewarded with results. But in that pursuance of whatever you're trying to achieve with the data, you must recognize what is helping you and what's actually working, or what is making things worse. I'll give you guys a couple of examples just to emphasize my point. When it comes to performance, when you train more, you feel better. You perform better. You're better at lifts, you're better at conditioning, whatever it is. But if you do deadlifts when you want your handstand push-ups to be better, that's messed up, or there's something wrong there. When it comes to recovery, more body work, more body maintenance, more time doing mobility equals less injuries. But if your shoulder is bugging you and you're rolling your foot 90% of the time, that's not going to work. So we have to have kind of an analytical perspective. So when it comes to nutrition, obviously, the better you eat, how, what, and when you eat, while of course understanding why, the better you feel, the better you look. You look leaner, or whatever your goal specifically is, right? But if you're eating junk food and patalo ka. But if you're eating junk food and drinking like a fish while you want six-pack abs or a sub 2-minute 15 Fran, or let's flip it around a little bit. You want to lift heavier but you eat like a bird. You guys get my drift. Those are the truth bombs for you, and hopefully we went straight to the point. So to answer, I know what certain questions you guys might have in your head. So we move on to the last segment of today's module, and that's accountability. To discuss it, I'm going to give you guys 3 definitions for the day first. Definition number 1 is obviously accountability. And it basically reads, the fact or condition of being accountable. Responsibility, right? And with that, we're going to do a side definition of that responsibility. Because you're responsible, you yourself, you're the only one in control of how your nutrition goes. You know what? No one's going to hold that pizza and chug it down your throat. We can't say the same for tequila.
You know what they say. Once it tastes your lips, it tastes your lips.
But no, I'm just kidding, right? But basically, what I'm trying to get to here is you are the only one responsible. You can get other people to help you be accountable, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But at the end of the day, you are the only one. That's why in training, a lot of my athletes, they're always telling me, thank you, coach. I was able to unlock this movement because of you. I was able to lift this movement because of you. And I always tell them, you know what? No. You put in the work. All the credit goes to you. And they always get dumbfounded by that. And they always tell me, like I've heard once from one of my athletes say, so you mean to tell me you had nothing to do with me getting my bar muscle up? And I said, in a sense, I did because I had guidance, but I had zero to do when it comes to achieving that goal, because at the end of the day, you put in the work. You assume all responsibility. And it's important to recognize that, because when we put that level of responsibility on others, we're taking the efforts away from ourselves. And that becomes a little bit of a circling movement. So we have to realize that at the end of the day, we need to be the ones to do it. When it comes to accountability, one of the worst things that we can have, or one of the worst things we can experience, is making excuses. We're just going to put a definition on that as well, just to be clear. Excuses is basically an attempt to lessen the blame attaching to a fault or an offense. It is a way to seek or to defend or to justify. So you have to know the difference between when you're keeping yourself accountable to when you're making excuses. And I say this all the time because honestly, personally speaking, as a coach as well, I hate it when people make excuses, because as the definition says, they're trying to justify something. They're trying to attempt to lessen the blame, especially on themselves. And that's negating the reality of things, such as responsibility and accountability. Along with excuses, one of the worst things that you can experience throughout this entire thing is complaining. So we'll put a definition to that as well. The expression of dissatisfaction or annoyance about something. Much like in training, if you complain, like, oh my God, this is so difficult, this is so hard, I can't do this, I don't want to do this right now, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's a problem. Because when you attach negative connotations to things that may seem difficult, even if it's only at the time, not as a whole, you're already setting yourself up for problems in the future. So my challenge for you guys when it comes to accountability is this. Make less excuses and complain less. Not only will you see that your mood and your approach to dialing in your nutrition and keeping yourself accountable and making good habits improve, but your overall mood improves as well. So, what are our suggestions when it comes to keeping yourself accountable? One of the greatest expressions for self-accountability is pretty simple. Prepare your own food. It's the maximum expression of responsibility. You yourself have full control over that. Do your own research and test it yourself. A lot of people, they'll read about it, they'll be so excited about it, but it ends there. There's no actual execution of the plan, and that's a problem. Keep yourself accountable. And I know a lot of people who are very capable of doing this. Suggestions, if you are not one of those people who are very good at keeping yourself accountable, follow these easy steps. Number one, again, hire a professional. We CrossFit coaches, we may know a thing or two about nutrition, but if you want to go the maximum lengths and extremes of really dialing it all in, seek a professional, hire them. Specifically a nutritionist. Number two is find a super friend. If you have difficulty doing things alone, look for someone who will go on the same journey as you. It could be a family member, it could be a close friend, whatever. Last but not the least is incentivize someone to try to do that task for you, to keep yourself accountable. Mankind's greatest incentive is, or one of the greatest incentives is reward. Whether it's in money or it's in kind, it doesn't matter. But when you incentivize somebody to do something for you, chances are they'll actually execute it. And if it's a simple task as keeping yourself accountable, keeping you accountable, it might actually work. It may actually help. My recommendation here is to try to keep it fun. But in whatever it is, take a step in making yourself accountable when it comes to your nutrition. To sum it all up, and this is also relevant to the times today during COVID-19 and the quarantine, but also moving forward when all of this has been lifted. So again, habits. Make it a habit to not just eat well. Make it a habit to set goals for yourself. Follow the step-by-step process that we suggested earlier. And understand what you're putting into your body, and more specifically and especially why. Then you'll start seeing some major progress. Accountability, on the other hand, is a little bit more black and white. It's either you're doing it or you're not. It's important to know how you are when it comes to the approach with your nutrition. If you recognize that you can't do it alone, seek professional help. If you're comfortable or have a hard set mode on independence, by all means, have at it. But don't ever be afraid to try. One of man's biggest limitations is not doing something that they want because of the fear of failure. When in fact, failure is the greatest teacher of them all. And fear is the greatest wall that separates yourself and your goals. Don't be afraid to climb that wall, for by doing that, you may just find your best self on the other side. Philosopher Job. Yeah, I did that on video, sorry. And that's pretty much everything we have to say to you guys about nutrition. And hopefully that really helped you guys out, especially if you guys are still on lockdown over there at your homes. And hopefully it also helps you out moving forward when we're back to our regular normal lives. Please again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook and our most active of all the platforms so far. Follow us on Instagram as well, right? We hope that everybody is out there safe and sound during this lockdown. We hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned a thing or two, and maybe you can apply it with all of our time now at home, right? Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.